Andrea Leon, the director of all things Apalta, actually, and for all things Domaine Bernier Lapostolle, and she'll tell us about that. Um, when we think of Chile as enthusiastic American consumers, all of us will at least probably get an image or a flavor of value-oriented Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon. But what has happened over the last, I don't know, couple of at least one decade, probably more, are things that are a lot more exciting than that. Though there's nothing wrong with dependable red wine excellence, right? Especially in the face of prices. A Napa Valley cab, if I can reduce it to that. We haven't actually ever done a tasting, either virtual or actual, celebrating Chile. My bad. So I'm thrilled we're doing this today. And I'm not going to tell you much other than a few overview points, because I know that Andrea can do a far better job than anything I can well imagine. This is her, not only where she lives, but her heart and soul. And I'm just going to remind us that we are in South America. We are west of the Andes. We're in that beautiful, thin country called Chile that has a very strong Pacific influence. And then, as well as the Andes to its east, it is landlocked on all four sides. So it has the bragging rights of being phylloxera free. It did a major pivot in, I think, the 1980s and made premium exports a high priority. And we are the happy recipients of that intent. They've been making wine for a really long time, originally brought by the Spanish for, making ecclesiastical wine. Their domestic market, and this is one of the many things I want to ask Andrea, I'm curious how, if the young people are drinking wine or if they're drinking pisco and beer, because certainly Chilean wine production, a lot of it is exported, especially to the United States. The Andes figure big time in a different manner than it does in Argentina, but if I've got my facts straight, for a country whose vineyards need irrigation, you have the purest runoff from snow-capped mountains anywhere. You can't beat that, that water source. And we're going to feature a very specific growing region today that is kind of a superstar when it comes to Chilean premium production. Because when you read notable excerpts, they usually talk about the Central Valley, notably Colchagua, and within that, a recently canonized small region called Apalta. And I'm going to brag about the founder of Lapostolle, if you don't mind, Andrea, because I'm reading this from a book that my friend Evan Goldstein wrote. Can you see that? Wines of South America. And in it, if you go to Chile, a couple of pages into it, this wonderful book. Anything Evan writes is terrific, because he manages to take a complex subject and distill it for the common man. And that's capital C, capital M, because I'm one of them. And I was lucky enough to meet a couple of years ago at Women in Wine Leadership Symposium, Alexandra Marnier Lapostolle, who talked about how she had the itch, the inspiration to find a really interesting wine project somewhere in the world. And that she found these very special old vineyards in Apalta in Chile, and encouraged by a notable wine consultant, she managed to convince, her words, the men in her family, aka her father and her husband and uncles, to do significant investment in Chile. And this is what Evan Goldstein says about Alexandra and also women in wine in Chile. And in caps, it says, "It takes a good woman." In 1994, when Alexandra Marnier Lapostolle founded the winery that bears her name, Chile's wine industry was a distinctly macho world. She was and is visionary and courageous. Today, it is said that Chile leads every country except the United States in the number of women involved at every level of winemaking and marketing. 35% of the enologists and enology students in Chile are women. So that said, we are incredibly lucky to have one of those women with us tonight. And Andrea Leon Iriarte, and if I've mangled the pronunciation, Andrea, I apologize, is the technical director and winemaker for Domaine Bournay Lapostolle. And she's going to tell us exactly what that means, but she basically hugs their entire operations in Chile. She has lived in the United States and Europe and New Zealand, so she's comfy with us and our language. And she did, though, double major in economics and enology and viticulture in Santiago. She joined this team in 2005 as the on-site winemaker for Quillapalta, and then she managed to wear several other hats, including communications director, and took over all technical and winemaking operations in 2020. So bravo, Andrea, welcome. And we can't wait to hear what you have to say about Chile and the wines you make. We're so happy to have your company.
Well, thank you, Madeline, and for the nice introduction. And yeah, well, I've been moving around this domain for quite a long time now. 15 years I've been working with a family, doing various things, from spreading the love, and I was in communications, but always related to the technical side. So I took over Lapostolle operations back in 2016, and this is my first harvest as a technical director. I arrived to the winery as the on-site winemaker when I was more young. So it's nice to be back here with more responsibilities, undoubtedly, but it's good.
Can you tell us what's the difference? And forgive me if I interrupt you occasionally, just because I like to ask the ignorant questions, and then other people don't have to be shy about asking them. What's the difference between a technical director and a winemaker? And are you involved in directing the viticulture also? How does that work?
Yeah, well, technical director is a very French kind of way of envisioning the craft, really, because winemaker is generally speaking very much related to making the wine, and that might or not involve the vineyard. Notably, bigger wineries tend to have a separate department. Small wineries, you can look after the vineyards as well. But technical director is a wider responsibility, because you take always over the vineyard. So the viticulturists report to me, but also all the way up to the shipping of the wine. So I also have all the production, very unglamorous production side of
but essential, right?
But very important for you, because well, after you make the wine, typically it's production who takes over and do all the rest of the logistics and all that. But the technical director oversees from the grape growing up to shipping, putting the wine in a container and shipping it over. So the only thing I'm not directly involved is basically sales, which our dear boss, Charles de Bournay, he's in charge.
Yes, he is the seventh generation, correct? He is Alexandra's son. That's right. She's very proud of him. Right.
Yeah, yeah. He's our current leader. He's our CEO, but very much involved in all the commercial side and, well, all the finance. We have a CFO, a lady also, so there's a lot of ladies here.
But I think he must trust your decisions.
Who does that? So. Yeah, well, I make all the technical side of the, with a great team. It's impossible to do it without a great team. With my viticulturist, we have a team of 3 winemakers, who work with us, and of course a head of production and logistics who does all that side, supply chain and everything. So it's a big team behind me, obviously, otherwise it would be impossible. But that's the idea. So you have one head who will take over all that side.
Well, we should look at some pictures. Abby, do you want to project some of those? Wonderful.
Okay, so well, that's I am sitting now. If you see at the end of the valley is the winery, which has that kind of bird nest shape. And I'm sitting inside there, like I don't know if you can see the cellar. That's the cellar, if you can.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
See a little bit.
I mean, what was the inspiration?
You can see the cellar.
What was the inspiration for this design? It's so unique and very beautiful.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that through the presentation.
Great, sure.
With the photos. So, Abby. So this is Chile. It's located, as Marlene was saying, in the southern, western side of South America. We have this crazy shape of a country, really. It's like a long spaghetti squeezed between the South Pacific Ocean and the Andes Mountain. You can see how little land we have when you see it from Google Earth. The snow peaks are the Andes, and they go all over our frontier with Argentina. So our neighbor, again, Argentina. And on the other side, the near country, which is not a country, but is Tahiti. Tahiti would be the nearest bit of land, and then officially would be New Zealand, our other neighbor.
Tahiti in the Pacific.
Yeah. So there's basically nothing until you loop around the Earth, except cold Pacific Oceans. Okay. So this is a cut explaining a little bit what the key features. And as you can see, the Andes are very important, but they're very different than what happened on the other side. The Andes in Chile, as you can see, have are very steep and very, how do you say in English? Are very
tall,
but it's the angle.
Oh, it's a steep grade, right?
It's a slope.
Slope.
It's slope. That's it. It's a steep.
Thank you, Ron.
They're very steep and slopey. And then we have here in the middle, squeezed, is where we all live. All the Chileans live in that bit of flatter area in the middle of the country. And then we have the Pacific. So you have these two main influences in a mosaic tapestry of places. We call it a crazy geography. It's like an accident, a geological accident. Okay, and undoubtedly the Pacific plays a major role in our life, along with the Andes, who change their shape very much from north to south. There you have all the main appellations. They're easy for us Chileans, probably not that easy for you guys, but they follow basically the rivers who cut our country. As we have all the Andes all across, you have all these rivers who cut our very thin country in different areas. So that's why it's a geography which is full of accidents. And you go from Elqui, which is the Elqui Valley with the Elqui River, Aconcagua, San Antonio, which are coastal. Then we hit Maipo. This is where Santiago is, our capital. Chile is still a very centralized country. So we are 20 million people, but half of the population lives in the capital. Imagine that in the States, you have half of the Americans living in Washington, D.C. It's crazy. And then we move a bit further down, and we are located right in the middle of the country, in the Colchagua Valley, but in a specific appellation called Apalta. And then you go further south. What is happening in Chile today? We're moving a bit southern, exploring places a little bit near Patagonia for cool climate varietals, and also climbing a little bit on the hills, something that Argentina did a bit long ago.
What are your highest vineyards, Andrea?
We have highest point in our vineyard is about 560 meters, which is a block of Carmener in Apalta. But the main difference between that's a typical question for people who like South American wines. In Chile, we don't need to climb on altitude like Argentina because we do have the Pacific influence. Argentina doesn't have it because of the height of the Andes.
Right.
They block all the cooling influence for the Pacific. So for them to have a cooler night, which is a key quality factor for red wine, they have to climb in altitude.
Very high.
We don't need. We can plant with great results at the next to the sea, in the middle, or if we want, for a stylistic point of view, climb up. Okay.
No, that's a beautiful way to put it, because the tempering influence of the Pacific isn't accessible to Argentina, and their top vineyards start at 3,000 feet above sea level. So thank you for explaining that.
See, for them, the altitude is a key factor of quality. For us, it's the distance to the sea. Okay.
Got it. Oh, here we go. I love these.
Yeah.
We have a Google Earth just to impress everyone what it's like to travel to Cloapalta.
Yeah.
And there you, is that where you are now?
That's the entry of the winery. Yeah. So when you will be able to come back and see us when this terrible pandemic finally goes away, you'll arrive through there. So, well, these are 3 vineyards today. We were pioneers in finding the terroir for our wines. And we started with Alexandra when she founded the winery, producing grapes in 3 appellations. So we have the Casablanca Valley, where we make a Chardonnay, then the Las Curas vineyard, mainly for Sauvignon Blanc, and then Apalta. Today, we're just gonna focus in Apalta, okay? So here we go. Well, Apalta is a horseshoe-shaped area. Apalta, as you were mentioning, something very important is that in 2018, it was recognized as a separate DO, a specific appellation within the Colchagua Valley, okay? So you have from Chile, what we saw, all the middle of the country is what we call the Central Valley. And then you have different smaller appellations, let's say Maipo, Cachapoal, Colchagua, which still huge, you know, compared to, I don't know, places in Europe or even in the States. And the next step now, the Ministry of Agriculture, which is very difficult and very South American in a way. So it takes a lot of time to obtain many legal advances on that side. I acknowledge a few appellations on 2008 who were not necessarily political or administrative. Beforehand, you could only be an appellation if you were a commune. So you had administrative status. Okay, and it was very hard to make them understand that a wine doesn't move around administration,
vote, right?
But you know, it's about geographic terroir, you know, geographic climate and the human being. So Apalta is the first DO in Chile, which is not related to a commune. It's related to the quality of the wines it's been producing for the last 30 years.
But that's thrilling. So did you guys make a case for that to the administration?
We all did, along with other wineries in the valley, and along with the College of Winemakers. It was a bit of more of a trade thing. We are a big player on the valley, so of course we participate. But we have to prove with a lot of things that it wasn't just, marketing, because they didn't believe us. So it was something that took about 8 years to make it a law, which finally started. So from the 2018 vintage, we could legally put a palta as a DO in a label.
Oh, so it's not, that's right. It's not on the 17 Petit Clos. I just looked at it. Right.
Yeah, that's why on 18, our Le Rouge wine, we changed the name to a palta to celebrate that very important thing that happened to us.
How many other wineries are there in this region?
In a palta, there's not that many. It's about 5 wineries producing, but there's a lot of vineyards and smaller producers again. Okay,
which is a new phenomena in Chile also, or a relatively new phenomenon.
We have very high-end producers who sell very good grapes, and notably in the valley there's one of the most old vineyards of Cabernet Franc in Chile, along with Maipo Valley. So that's why it's such an important place as well, because of the historical value of the vineyards you can find here. Okay. So well, today, that's a very old vine, as I was talking. There's a close-up so you can see, all these bits, and these plants, we have about 60 hectares planted with vines from 1920 to 1945. Okay, and that's very unique.
And this is Carmenere and Cabernet Sauvignon?
We have mostly Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmenere, but also we have a field blend where there's a little bit of Malbec and Cabernet Franc. But that's not written on the paper. That's just what you see in the vineyard.
Telling us. And this is the lovely phylloxera that doesn't exist in Chile.
We really don't know. There's a few theories. It's either somehow, because phylloxera is in Mendoza, and we have lots of trade with Mendoza by road with trucks who go through, the pass through Mendoza and Santiago. So I'm sure phylloxera would have arrived, but there's a few theories saying because we have so many minerals in the water, our irrigation keep it away. Or there's certain conditions of drought or the balance of our climate. Nobody really knows why it hasn't arrived. But the fact is, that's why we can have so many hectares of, not grafted vines. People still plant vines, just with cuttings. We use, Portingerto, we use rootstock for technical reasons that we can discuss later if you really want to go into that detail.
I wanted to just overstate something that, phylloxera is something that destroyed the vineyards of Europe, in the late 1800s, and they were replanted on American rootstock. But what, the reason we keep talking about rootstock is it's an aphid that attacks the roots and makes it impossible for the vine to get nutrients. So not having phylloxera in a country is a very big deal, right? Most of the vineyards in the world have had to replant.
You can grow vineyards on their own roots, which can be an interesting side. You have the choice. It's always better to have the choice. But to be honest, a lot of people don't understand, and we included, how it hasn't arrived. Because if COVID arrived, we had and everything. You have seen how much connected we are today as a world. And this bag, who's just next door, hasn't arrived. Well, but today, thanks God, it hasn't been detected. Or if it lives here, it's not. This activity is, doesn't.
It's not creating
irrelevant
problems yet, right?
It's irrelevant yet so far. Okay. So well, this is a bit of the story of the family. This very dashing gentleman. Were the ones who started the history of the family. They it's all linked to grapes, because even if they were not making wine, they were distilling it. So this is really the join of two families, the Marnier and the Lapostolle. Lapostolle had a distillery, and Marnier had the brilliant idea, married his daughter, to put orange flavors on a liqueur, and made
And it worked.
very famous, and like kind of the jet set of the time, the celebrities who were at the time, the princesses and all that, the Suzette. And he met Cesar Ritz, who was the owner of the one who invented the hotel concept as we know it today. And he loved the liquor and used it in his kitchen, and that's how Grand Marnier became what it's today. So that's the family in Chile now. So we moved from France to Chile, and that's Madame Alexandra Marnier, her husband, who came back in '94. Well, you talk about her. She's now enjoying her time in Europe with her grandchildren. She's still involved here and there, but it's her son, Charles, in the right, who is leading today the winery and all the operations.
I read a great article about him, and he travels a lot, and he makes it a mission to make sure that Apalta is recognized in as far-flung areas as what? Thailand, China.
Oh, yeah. It's been for him really tough not to be able to jump on a plane. So, you know, it's been stuck with us all the time, which is good and bad because he really misses traveling. But well, he's
Oh,
you know,
did he have to stay in? He's been in Chile all through the COVID crisis.
No, everything. We are still with our frontiers are closed. Right. I cannot leave the country unless it's like a humanitarian. We're still wearing masks. Even I had my 2 vaccines, everything, but we're very much, and we're hitting the winter also. So I think that's what we're a bit more, we're wearing again, and our sanitary, you know, our health system is in pressure still.
Well, I'm raising a glass to your being able to get on a plane before Charles does, just to make him jealous. Oh, yes.
I'll be difficult.
But we should talk about the Lapostolle
anyway,
Apalta.
Let's talk about the Apalta. Well, Apalta was, a way to make a wine for every day, unpretentious, full of flavor, but that will reflect a little bit of our terroir. It's a red blend based on Cabernet Sauvignon, because we have about half of our plantations in Apalta is Cabernet. Apalta Cabernet is quite special. It's it's fresh. It has a good tannic structure, but it's a bit shy on the nose. So we add some Syrah, some Carmener, depending on the vintage, some Merlot, to spice up the nose, to make it a little bit more open. The wine is made in Lapostolle, the founding winery, which is a winery that was built in the 1950s. So it's a very old Chilean hacienda style of building, but inside we rebuild it with stainless steel, you know, with all the technology we needed. So we do a strict optical selection there.
Can you tell everyone what an optical selection is? Because this is neat.
See, that's something that is used by wineries like Opus One, you know, and we have the luxury to use it in all our wines because we help to develop it in Chile, at least in South America. So we had 2 machines. It's an interesting technology that was brought from the berry industry, where you cannot really touch berries when you're selecting, you know, because they go, you ruin them right away. Right. So it was a way, we apply the same concept to grapes. So you have a long sorting table with all the berries already destemmed. So you just have the round, you know.
They're all rolling around, right?
Rolling around, yes. And then there's this machine, you don't see anything, but what happens inside the machine is you have a camera who you program a scale of color that you allow. Okay, so you tell the machine, from this color to this color, take it. From this color to that one, so on the sides, it blows out. So what happened? You have all the grapes coming here, like there, and they're jumped from one level to the other. On that moment, the camera reads the color, and if the color is off, it blows air on pressure
and gets rid of those berries
and get rid of everything who's green, who should be lighter, or berries who are shriveled or off color, who are also lighter because they have less water. So whatever falls on the belt who will bring the grapes to the tank is selected. So
this is not an inexpensive machine, everyone. So for them to have it is a big deal. I have to tell you, I'm tasting the wine, and there's a lot. You have around 15% Syrah, a significant amount of Syrah in here. And I'm curious, was this your idea to put this much Syrah? Because it has the effect of just giving some really nice spice, and the Cabernet is elegant and subtle. I mean, overall, the wine is very refreshing. You get all this pretty dark fruit, but the aromas are not what I think of when I think of Chilean Cabernet. It's much, it's less green. And it's much more, dark fruited with a little bit of spice. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of describing it, but I love how juicy it is. And
that was the idea, to make as all the wines we make, a blend who will spice up a little bit our cab. For the serious cab lover, we have our Cuvée Alexandre, which is all about structure. But this wine is a bit more about the nose. It's very perfumed. And to be honest, more than thinking of a varietal, we have a lovely vineyard of Syrah where we have about 10 hectares of Syrah where we selected for our Cuvée Syrah. But then we blended across the board. Syrah brings a lot of flowery red fruit, it kind of sparkle a blend. And well, on 18, it worked well. And 19, it will be different. That's the thing with the blends, they change. But the idea here is to build up a wine on 3 or 4 grape varietals, all from a Balta, which will be very juicy, very round, very pleasant, that it has a good structure in order to go very well with any food. So from the usual barbecue, but to something a little bit more subtle also, and at a very good value price. So if you taste this wine, you'll be happy to move up, to taste the others. It's a great way.
It's not a simple-minded wine. It's actually got length. The tannins are neat because it's drying, but very smooth. And I like this wine a lot. I'd be intrigued to drink it over a couple of hours and see what other fragrances and perfume emerges.
Also, 18 was a cooler vintage. That's important to mention, you guys, because it has that a little bit more spice, maybe, than the usual. We had a lovely growing condition, but it was on the cooler side.
Somebody on our team just asked a great question. Do you change the blend to keep consistency or to showcase that year?
Oh, that's a good question, because you can do a bit of both. The vintage will give you the colors you have to paint, basically. So you have a cooler vintage like this one, will be a little bit more on the spice, a little bit more on the freshness. So I'm trying to look for that same style on a very warm vintage, and I will probably have to change the blend consistently. So you need to do a little bit of both. The vintage should express itself naturally, and what we want is a wine which is juicy, it has a good complexity, it can age. This is a wine which is all aged in oak also, and a 9% new oak for 13 months. So overall, it's a serious wine anyway.
Oh, it's a lot of wine for the money, as we Americans would say. So I love the fact that we're showing this wine today. Abby, we should probably keep going with the pictures, or we're going to keep everyone.
Yeah, I don't know how many you have. So that's a Balta. That's the overall of a Balta. So this is basically the whole of the valley, and you have the river that you can barely see it on the bottom, and then it's like an amphitheater of hills go in and out. So there's about 800 hectares, between 800 and 1,000 hectares, and we own at least half of them.
Wow.
So this is El Cóndor de Apalta. We have 2 estates in Apalta. This would be our more Bordeaux-driven estates, where we have Merlot, as you can see. Well, the ones on red, the red ones are Merlot, the light blue is Carmener, Cabernet is the pink. So those are the vineyards for Lapostolle.
And this is an area where Carmener, at least I was reading in Evan's book, he has great praise for the Carmener specifically from Apalta. He says that in his opinion, it's some of the best Carmener and Cabernet Sauvignon in Chile. I mean, that's a hell of a statement.
Yeah, no, I agree with him. I know Evan pretty well. I spent some time with him.
Oh, did you spend time with Evan? That's great. We've known each other forever. So I'm proud of him, and I like to quote him.
Send him a hug. We went to the south together a couple of years ago. I think it was one of the last times I was away. So this is San José de Apalta, and well, further on, which is more of our own estate, but we're not tasting the wines from there, so we can just move on. This is quite a cool thing you're showing, which makes our vineyards quite unique in the world, which is also the exposure. We look to the south, and we're located on the cooler. Imagine this is the south hemisphere, so everything is upside down. And you can see the sun goes to sleep in the Pacific and rises from the Andes, which you see a little bit of the haze. That's the Andes on the back. Unfortunately, you cannot see it. So although all day, at the end of the day, from let's say about 3 o'clock in the winter, maybe 5 o'clock in the summer, we get this lovely shadow who really, covers our vineyard quite early during the day. So that allows us to keep a certain profile of coolness and acidity, even being located on an area which is considered warm, okay, in the central part of Chile. That allows us to have that expression in Carmener that you were mentioning, to have fresh Cabernets, to have good Merlot, and so on. So that's it's a beautiful view of the vineyard also.
And it's this is very particular to your area, because a lot of areas, they fight for as much exposure as possible. And also your exposure is south facing, correct?
Yeah, that's quite rare, but because you're normally either on the slopes of the Andes or on the slopes of the coastal Cordillera. So you normally are east or west, but north-south is more rare. So this is another view of in the springtime that we're missing today, that we're in the middle of the winter. So this is roughly for us, would be October, is just starting to shoot. So that would be maybe early October. That's the beginning of the springtime. And you can see our cover crops. And this is wraps that we plant. So we bring the seeds. And it's a good way to control nematode, which is a kind of an insect who attacks the roots. So, and the other side, you see clover, which is help to fix nitrogen. So, well, it's a beautiful picture of the vineyard in the springtime.
It's gorgeous. We just got actually your timing, Abby, is exquisite, because we just got a question that's quite eloquent. That is, I know that Andrea can address in talking about Le Petit Clos, and it's speaking about your process for assemblage, assembling the blends, and when you taste them, how you envision them coming together, how you make the selection, anything along those lines. But tell us what Petit Clos is first, so we understand it.
Okay, so another big question from La Roche.
Yes, good questions.
Anyway, we will. What happened? Well, it's quite different. I think when you work on varietals, that when you're gonna end up making a blend, Okay. So I wear one hat when I'm making a Sauvignon Blanc, for example, or a Cab, or a totally different hat when I'm thinking in a blend like a Palta or even Le Petit Clos. I'll say the process is, you have more pressure and it's a bit more, you review it many more times, but the process per se is quite similar for any blend. So first, before the harvest, you need to envision a little bit what will be the balance you're looking for. And that depends a bit how you see the harvest coming. So one vintage, I don't know, you got a hail in your lower side Cabernet. So you know you won't have that much Cabernet. So that harvest conditions will take your blend a little bit. Of course, because things happen in the vineyard, there's rain, there's heat, there's fires today, we live in a certain world regarding climate. So sometimes those big events will take you into towards one place or one direction. So you need to be able to be flexible on that. So you start with your idea. For example, this vintage is a cool vintage in Clos Palta, for example, this 2021. And I knew I was going to do a lot of Carmener because I could see there was a special potential for Carmener. So, I made a selection of the plots I thought would be better. And I added maybe a 10-20% of Carmener, and I might, because the winery is not big, as you know, so I have a certain space. So you play a little bit with that at the beginning. Before making the wine, you have a kind of master plan. While you do the harvest, things change, so you always end up doing a little bit different. Some vintages, others, you will stick more to the plan, it depends. And well, then you have your components, which are babies, basically. That's when you need to be patient and wait a little bit for the wines. In the case of a Palta, I'll be probably thinking of how to build up the blend 6 months after the harvest. I'll start already thinking, okay, it will be Cab based, it will be Carmener based, it will be Merlot. We try to at least repeat the base of the wine because it's very hard to keep consistency, changing everything every year. So I'll try to think, okay, the Palta will always be Cabernet based, so I need to have half of the wine with a Cabernet of this style. For a Palta, it needs to be very elegant with smooth tannins. For Clos, on the contrary, I need
more power, right?
More power. So every blend with its own, characteristics and tweaks. And then, the process of blending per se, sometimes it's very different also vintage to vintage. Some vintage, it happens very naturally. So you taste all your wines once a month, at least, maybe twice a month, all the wines of the winery. So we get together with the winemakers and we start thinking, okay, this amount of wines will go to this level. So you make a quality split.
Assessment, right.
Same between Clos and Petit Clos and Clos Palta, in Lapostolle between, Cuvée and Lapostolle. And then you start really digging, okay, this is great for Cuvée because they're varietals, so they need, that kind of very, making a varietal wine is like I always say it's like a white dress, there's just the thread and the quality of the fabric. It needs to be very clean and right from the beginning.
Right, and straightforward.
In a blend, it's like a very, full of twills and sparkles, and you can play. They're both nice to make, but they're very different in that sense. And so normally the varietals wines, I oversee them earlier, and the blends, you start to building them up through the year. Okay, so every month you taste the wines again, and sometimes, okay, we know that the Palta needs to be launched in September next year, and sometimes we say, okay, we're gonna do a pre-blend when we got very good things that we want them to age together. Some other times we do it right at the end, whether we have doubts. Normally we do pre-blends and we build the wine little by little, especially
now we can see why you work so closely with your team, because this is pretty artistic. I mean, and you've got a lot going on. I want to interrupt for one moment because I want to make something evident to everyone, because you have several, we're talking about several levels of wine. So the Le Petit, first of all, Clos Apalta is your flagship, the most expensive, the best wine that you make. And is Le Petit Clos, do you refer to it as a second label the way the Bordelaise do, Andrea?
Well, Le Petit Clos is like a selection of quality, really. It's what I just mentioned. More than a second wine made with younger vineyards or, you know, with a second label for us is more a barrel selection in the winery. Okay, so Le Petit Clos, it's a wine that we wanted to be a little bit more open, a little bit more fresher, a little bit more lighter, based on Cabernet, generally speaking. And then Clos Apalta, we need more richness, more roundness. So it's a bit of a different style. Also, I'd say Le Petit Clos is a bit more classic, you know, and that is a bit more closed. Clos Apalta is all, you know, roundness and you know, a bit more Carmenere driven in that sense.
This wine is showing great. Do you have it in your glass? Will you?
Oh, yeah.
How would you describe the 17 Le Petit Clos? And this was a hot year, correct?
Correct.
A hot, dry year.
So right. We're trying face to face two very different vintage conditions. Le Petit Clos was a very dry. It was extra dry. In fact, we had fires not in our area. We were lucky enough not to be affected, but we had huge fires who affected lots of vineyards. It was a big drought and very, very hot. So we had to work very fast in the vineyard and harvest early. So it wasn't easy, you know, to have freshness and elegance, but I think we managed pretty well with Le Petit and with Clos in particular as well. But it was a difficult vintage, you know, also because those vintages, everything happens so fast. They're difficult too. We just finished one. I'm sorry, was very slow. 2021 was very cold and slow. I don't know what's worse at the end.
But this wine has great structure. I just love the mouthfeel of it. You know, it's serious, but it's accessible. It's like four square, but you know, the tannins are a little more drying, but and the Cabernet is evident. But I want to ask a personal question. You know, I often think of Carmenere as lending, you know, herbaceous or green elements, and I don't pick it up in this wine at all. And this has quite a bit of Carmenere in it. Is the Carmenere in this area different?
I think Carmenere is a great variety, which is it delivers a lot of personality and is very showy of when you harvest it. And Carmenere is a very late grape. It has a physiological cycle that is late. So you need to be able to wait for it. And for that, you need sun, you know, and dry conditions, generally speaking. It's hard to make Carmenere on an entry level with high yields, you know, and all that. Carmenere needs attention, needs controlling the amount of bunches you leave, needs controlling the shadowing.
So it's like a Scorpio.
It's a bit of a pain. It's not as bad as Pinot Noir, you know, which is like the greatest pain.
Are you a Scorpio, Abby? Is that
no,
why
but my husband is.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Sorry. Taking this on a personal level.
It's a difficult grape variety that grows really well in Apalta. And I think also to have a little bit of spice in Carmenere and a little bit of that herbal notes is part of the personality of the grape.
But it doesn't dominate in this wine at all. It doesn't command your attention.
It shouldn't dominate. The same that on Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon can be very herbal, pushy and green, right. You know.
How old are these vines, Andrea? I mean, in Le Petit Clos, as opposed to the age of the vines? Yeah.
There's all, I'll say, all the Cabernet Sauvignon is old vines. So all the percentage of Cabernet that goes into Petit is old vines. We have about 35 hectares of cab, and there's quite a bit of leftover from that for Le Petit and even for Cuvée Alexandre Cabernet. Then the Carmenere, I'll say, is probably 30 years old. So, you know, it's getting there. And probably the Merlot is 20 years old, which is the same age for Cloa Palta as well. Merlot is the latest variety we have planted. So it's a good balance there between, you know, old vines. Also, the vineyards the family planted when they arrive are not clonal. They're massal selection, that they have a nice complexity and a little bit of clonal, more modern vineyards in there too. But definitely dominated, half of the wine will be made from old vines at least.
Good to know. Thank you.
So, well, that's Cloa Palta on the same vintage with the beautiful stain. How you is serigrafia? It's when you paint the bottle.
Is it painted? Is it calligraphy, or is it engraved?
It's like engraved. It's a technique
engraved. Yeah.
Engraved.
So, you know, I think I showed you the one in real time, but we actually have, I don't know, we had bought quite a few of these, and I think Brandon said we were the most enthusiastic buyers of magnums of this 17 Cloa Palta, which was rated 100 points by, was it Suckling?
Suckling, yeah.
Yeah.
By
And we still have a few left, and the price is not absurd. So I'm just mentioning that if anybody has an itch to acquire some, you can contact me directly, but it's also on our website, and I'll show it to you at the end. I don't want to take up Andrea's
it's a beautiful bottle.
Gorgeous.
So, and well, that's our residence, along with our winery and vineyards. We have a tourism, you know, wine tourism, which is also a little Relais Chateau hotel where you can hopefully very soon come and stay and be pampered, or at least come and have a lunch or meet me and enjoy the wines and the vineyard. So that's the cut. If you take that kind of round shape, you cut it in the middle, and this is what you see underneath. So it's really like an iceberg, where you can just see the first two levels are above the ground. So you will see the garden on the top, and that's the tank farm that I just showed you outside my door here. And then all the barrels are underground. So it's a 7-store winery that was built in 2005. That's a staircase.
Wow.
There's like the vortex you make for biodynamic. So I'm there.
So you mentioned biodynamic, but because there was one of the questions, you do subscribe to organic and biodynamic principles, right?
We manage our vineyards following a more sustainable approach, and that it will include organic, biodynamic, or any other. We're not. ¿Cómo se llama? We don't use it as a commercial tool. We don't put it in our labels, because for us it's more of a philosophy for many reasons. It's been a cornerstone of the family for many years. So we have also the belief that being organic and biodynamic will help express the terroir conditions, in a more pristine way in the wine. It's hard to measure it. It's a bit more of a commitment in terms of the environment. You can see all those hectares of wild bushes surrounding the estate. Also, I'll say more than following a set of rules. We try to keep biodiversity. We try to keep the quality of the water, the quality of the soils, the diversity, and the health of the people that works with us. So that's a bit of the story behind.
No, thanks for addressing that.
So that's the tanks. That the winery is gravity fed. That's why we have so many levels. So we destem the grapes, and then we have some little tanks who bring the grapes to the top through that passerelle to the top of the tanks, and we drop the grapes in each tank. This is for Clos and Petit Clos. This winery, we can crush here about 200,000 kilos of grapes, which is 3% of our production. So it's very, very small and dedicated.
I saw a cement egg in the middle there. Can you go back, Abby? So do you use those much, or are you experimenting with them?
Yeah, we had a few, but now we use them in Lapostolle, not in Clos anymore. We are very classic in Clos, and we probably use it once. I've done whites there that I like, and a little bit of rosé also. We did a bit of a rosé in egg.
Everyone, you see that little, they're so cute, that cement.
That's a mini one. That's 600 liters.
Whoa.
Very cute. We painted for Easter. We always painted for Easter.
You paint it for Easter?
Oh yeah, with chalks, with the kids.
That's fantastic. With chalk.
Yeah, it's a quail. Oh. Anyway, that's the first year barrel room. So after we ferment the wine, we rack it through the. We have a set of pipings through every level, and we rack it straight from the barrel, from the tanks into the barrels. We use mostly new oak, but we've been using a little bit of used oak from 2016 vintage onwards. Okay.
Are these small 225 or are they 500 Bordeaux also?
No, all Bordeaux, very classic, classic Bordeaux school, 225. So the wine spends 1 year up, and this is the second year barrel room where the wine will spend another year. So we have 24 months in total in oak, okay, from the beginning till the end. That's the same view. That's a beautiful cellar. It's all round, following the stars. It's a very pretty room. That's the normal label for Clos Apalta. What we were showing is the 17, which is the only time we've done that special bottle. So the next vintage we go into that one.
I'm wondering everyone, if you can hang with us for a little while longer. Andrea, can you spend maybe another 10 minutes with us in case people have comments and questions? But we did get through both of the wines that are drinking beautifully. I have a question because you are fermenting in neutral oak, correct? And then you transfer to small oak barrels, largely new. But I'll tell you, I'm not tasting Clos Apalta. I'm tasting Le Petit Clos. And it is not oak dominant at all. I mean, it's very well integrated.
Well, Petit Clos, talking about building the blend, after roughly 6 months to a year in Clos Apalta, we separate the two lots. So we know the lots of wine that are going to go to Clos. Mostly, there's always changes at the last minute, and the ones that go to Petit Clos. And then what will go into Petit Clos will change the barrel program. Then we'll put it in a third new, a third second use, and a third use barrel. So Petit Clos has much less oak than Clos Apalta.
Clos Apalta.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned about don't let me dominate the questions, everyone. So put some in the chat room. So two quick questions. One, if you can tell us why the nest architecture, and two, how global warming is affecting you. I mean, 17 was an example of climate change, or no?
Yeah. 17 was very much an example of the swings we're having. And I say more than drought, which is an issue in Chile at the minute, not only for winemaking, but for the whole country. So that is something that the desert is unfortunately moving from north to south. So it's hitting
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. It's very, very dry, except this last vintage, of course, where we had a lot of rain. So, that's why it's climate change. Conditions are swinging. So I'll say irrigation for us is important, hence a lot of work we're doing to understand better how to use it wisely. The other thing is also more extreme conditions in terms of heat or sunlight again. And then, so I will think those are the two main worries we have, how this will affect the physiology of the grapevine and how we're going to address that in terms of changing certain varietals, working with rootstock. That's why even if there's not phylloxera in Chile, we are looking into that in terms of water management. And then when it rains a lot, you know, so things are getting a bit more extreme really in terms of
You know what
events.
a Burgundy producer told me a couple of weeks ago, what is so hard for him is that he can't plan as easily as he used to, that, you know, you have to pay very close attention.
Oh yeah.
Because the weather is not consistent. Are you experiencing that?
See, we're experiencing that with certain nuances, because yeah, the Pacific always helps, and we're a little bit used also to have El Nino, you know, which is a climatic phenomenon which comes on and off. So you couldn't really plan much anyway, but not at this level. So we never had temperatures like 17 or so little water as 19 or a huge rain in the middle of the summer like this year. So that's something we're addressing as an industry and also as a winery.
Somebody asked a question, besides the US, what are the most important, I think he means markets.
Markets.
You didn't
guess.
say.
See, it's okay. The
Yeah.
most important, probably markets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the US for Lapostolle is our most important market, followed by Asia today. Used to be Europe, but now Asia overtook with
Thanks to
Japan.
Charles.
Japan, yeah, Charles spends a lot of time there. So Korea, Japan, mature markets for Chile, China, growing, very difficult.
So South Korea is an important market.
Oh yeah, very, very important. South Korea.
They have a lot of premium hotels and restaurants there?
See, no, and they drink wine from a long time. And the good thing is Chile came in the game very early on. So Chilean wines are very well established, better than other New World producers. So no, it's important, growing. And then Europe is stable. The problem in Europe is they're very cheap. We're stuck on the cheap, you know, as a country, I'm talking Chile. We do really well with Clos Apalta and Petit Clos on a collector's level there in Europe. We sell them through La Place de Bordeaux. And then South America. South America is Brazil mainly. That's where we sell wine, where the money is. Brazilians are crazy about wine, but it's very difficult in terms of logistics, all the administrative is super difficult. And Chile has been growing. It's great. It's a good market.
So Chile itself, the local consumption is good.
Yeah, we're growing our presence in Chile, like doubling every year. And it's I think it's developing. Still very much centralized in Santiago. That's unfortunately Santiago and a few other big cities. So it's very much where it happened is there, but it's definitely more happening down here now.
I think Michael asked another question regarding Carmenere, but you do make varietally labeled Carmenere, correct?
Oh yeah, see, we do. We have on every of our levels, from Lapostolle, which is definitely a bit more spicy, you know, and that, and then all the way up to Clos, which is more richer, around more chocolate driven. You know, we have any type of Carmenere you like, we probably have it. So.
What other labels should we be aware of that you touch under Bornay Lapostolle? You know, as far
all of them. You say it's hard to talk about one of them.
No, but I mean, if we want to support you, we look for Lapostolle, we look for
it's Lapostolle and Clos Apalta. Those are the two. We don't have, you know, anything else. And yeah, between those two wines, we cover from Rosé to a Sauvignon Blanc. You know, Lapostolle is our varietal winery. Apalta is the blend we make there, you know. And then our prestige, our chateau is Clos Apalta with these two wines. So you know, it's quite straightforward. But we're with a lot of different things to explore, really. From varietal wines, we're a bit more New World in terms of style, to a very classic French-driven blend, you know. Like
I love these two wines. I have to be honest with you. I just think that they're And I think that the price difference is wonderful because you're making great wine accessible at different price points,
That's always good.
which is wonderful. Because quite often, you know, we hear about the best wines, we don't get a chance to taste them, or what we call the entry level wines or the accessible wines are very simple. I don't think this Lapostolle Palta is simple by anybody's measure. I think it bears examination. Does anybody have another comment or question for Andrea? It's her 9:30, and we should, what time do you eat in Chile? Do you eat late like the Spanish do? Are you gonna go have dinner now?
We're on the same time.
Oh, are you seriously?
Yeah.
You're
Seriously,
7:30? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a bit late, but not terribly late. They're probably gonna start. I will start to get like the message. I said I'll be home by 7:30 for dinner. So,
But you
a bit late.
You have children as well?
Yeah, I have 2 boys. Very, very hectic. Going to school finally. The school's open this year. From our school starts in March. So they're going half day in the school, half day online, so they can put them all and keep the social distance. Crazy, you know.
International phenomena. The last 15 months have been a reset for everyone. It turned us upside down, and we'll see how we end up. But we'll keep the best of how we used to do things and invent better ways of doing things.
Others. But I've seen things going back a little bit to normal in Europe and in the US. So, you know, we're a bit behind you guys, but that gives us a bit of hope. And we're all looking forward for having a little bit of normality in socially talking, especially in the spring and summer.
We want to come and stay at your beautiful property. And whose idea was the nest? Can you tell us that before you go?
The nest, we, at the time, I wasn't working with a family then, but the story goes that Alexandra found a very peculiar architect, so to speak, which is a very artistic man who studied in Chile, but then moved very young to France and lived all his life in France. So she found this architect that wasn't very much known in Chile because he made all his kind of career outside. And he's a specialist in museums. So they came together to Chile to look at the site and talk about the project. And they found a bird nest on a wild bush right where the winery is. And they loved the shape, which was organic, which was kind of a nice symbol. So they decided to work with that. It worked well with kind of the concept of biodynamics, of, you know, all the Fibonacci, the golden square, and all that kind of architectural.
So an actual bird nest was the inspiration for Alexandra.
I got the photo. If you
let's see.
Yes, I can send it then to Brandon. And
if you send it to Brandon, if you send it to me, what I do is I always do a follow-up email with everyone. So I can distribute that. We can't thank you enough. I'm going to show actually a picture of how people can find all of your wines on our website. But please know from my heart that those of us in the Midwest of the United States will look forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah.
Either when we come to visit or you come to see us.
Yeah.
But
I'm really want to travel. I haven't been out of my region. I was in Santiago for a couple of days in November, and that's probably...
And that was a big deal, right?
No, that was like, I'm traveling the world, you know. So
I haven't been on a plane, and my company's starting to ask me when I intend to do that. And I don't know, I'm not really sure when I'm going to get on a plane. We'll see. But please thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me and for the good questions and the good feedback on the wine. I hope you can enjoy a little bit of Chile over there.
Well, you made it easy for us, and I want to give a big hug to Abby and her Scorpio husband, Mark Davison. Give him my love.
The Scorpio Carmen Edna was like the tagline.
He's the reason I got to go to Australia, so I thank him profusely. And everyone, can you see this? This is where we're doing a big pivot, and this is the time of year where we celebrate dry pink wine. We considered doing yours, Andrea, but I wanted to taste red, you know. But we're going to do 4 Kermit Lynch rosés, but not from Provence, 2 weeks from today. And we're going to have the company of Anthony Lynch. No, he is not 14. He just looks really young in this picture, but he is Kermit's son. So as you know, we support Kermit Lynch Imports. We have a really great relationship, so we get terrific accessibility from them. And we have actually an Italian sparkling dry rosé, a Beaujolais, one from Saint Chinian in Southwest France, and finally one from Corsica. So that's my favorite. It's like lifted and delicate. And you make a good rosé, yes?
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Provençal style with Grenache and Syrah mainly, and some Cinsault. That's
And,
something fun to try also.
Is it under the Lapostolle label?
It's under the Lapostolle label, this label here, but instead of Abalta says Le Rosé.
Okay.
So it's easy to spot.
And then I finally managed to pull up, can everyone see this? This is on our website. If you go to plummarket.com, on the top banner on the far left, you'll see ship to us. So you don't go to events, you go to ship to us, and then you select wine. And then see up here, you see, you know, where you search for something, just put in Apalta, and this will come up. And there is, oh, there it is. There's the Magnum. I'm not sure which stores have them, but we'll get it to you if you decide you want some, or you can indulge in more of Le Petit Clos or the Lapostolle Apalta. So thank you for staying on late as always. Big hug to you, Andrea. I will give you a warm hello to our friend Evan Goldstein.
Evan,
yes.
say hello. Yes.
And this was exceptional. We
Thank
wish
you
you
for
well.
everyone.
Have fun with your boys tonight, but I hope they go back to school full time. I'm sure that will be easier for you.
Yeah.
All the
Hopefully
best.
soon.
Everyone,
Best. Take care, everybody.
have a
Nice
great
to see
weekend.
you.
Andrea. Thanks, Madeline.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. Ciao.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Brandon.
Brandon, yes.
Bye, Brendan.
Bye, Paula.
Bye, Alter Ego.
Bye. I look forward to seeing you girls in person.
Yes.
Ciao.